Have you ever thought that just setting aside $50 a week, less than the cost of one dinner out, could grow into hundreds of thousands of dollars in 20 years? I used to be just a housewife, knowing nothing about investing, only worrying about meals and saving pennies. But then one small decision completely changed my life and my family's future. My name is Zoe. I'm 45 years old and I live in a quiet little town in Louisiana. These days, my life is calmer than it used to be. I spend my mornings watering the garden, preparing simple but hearty meals for my husband, Ben, and in the afternoons, I often sit on the porch with a cup of iced tea, listening to the cicadas hum in the trees. On weekends, I sometimes take trips with Ben, short vacations, exploring places we never had time for when life was busier and money was tighter. Our two daughters, Emily and Grace, are grown now. Both of them are married and have started building their own families. They live not too far away, so they visit us often, especially on Sundays. The house fills again with the sound of laughter, of little grandchildren running across the wooden floors, and I find myself smiling at how far we have come. If you look at my life today, you might think it has always been this peaceful and secure. But that is far from the truth. What you see now is the result of many struggles, sleepless nights, tough conversations, and one life-changing decision we made almost 2 decades ago, the decision to invest for the long term. I married Ben when I was just 18 years old. Back then, I was still in high school with dreams of going to college, maybe studying nursing or becoming a teacher. But life doesn't always follow the plan you make as a teenager. I got pregnant unexpectedly. I still remember the fear in my chest when I found out. My parents were disappointed, but Ben, my high school sweetheart, looked me in the eye and said, "We'll make it work. I'll take care of you." He was only 19, but he carried himself like a man determined to protect his family. So I left school, we married quietly at the courthouse, and I moved into a small rented house with Ben. It had peeling paint on the porch and only one bedroom, but it was ours. Ben found work as a forklift driver at a local warehouse. The pay wasn't much, but it was steady. He worked long hours, often taking double shifts, while I stayed home with our baby girl, Emily. At 22, I gave birth to our second daughter, Grace. By then, our tiny house always smelled like diapers, baby powder, and reheated leftovers. Every paycheck Ben brought home seemed to vanish instantly. Diapers, formula, electricity, car insurance. I tried to help by babysitting neighbor kids or doing sewing jobs, but it was never much. We managed to save a little each month, usually just enough to deposit into a small savings account at the bank. I thought we were being responsible. I believed that if we just kept adding to that account, someday we would be okay. By the time I turned 25, the cracks in that plan began to show. Prices kept rising. The grocery bill stretched further and further each month. Gas prices spiked, and even the cost of simple things like bread or milk seemed to climb higher every year. Ben's paycheck didn't grow nearly as fast. I remember one evening sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a stack of bills. The girls were asleep. The fan was humming above, and I felt a wave of anxiety. What if Ben got hurt at work? What if the warehouse closed? What if one of the girls got sick? We had maybe a few $1,000s in savings, enough for a couple months of expenses, but it didn't feel like a safety net. It felt like a thin sheet of paper trying to hold up a heavy weight. That night, for the first time, I whispered to myself, there has to be a better way. The better way came into my life through an unlikely source. My neighbor, Mary. Mary was a stay-at-home mom, too. She lived just 2 blocks away, and we often chatted while hanging laundry or watching our kids play in the yard. One afternoon, she invited me over for coffee. I noticed her mood was different. She was excited, almost glowing. She told me she had started investing in something called index funds and dividend-paying stocks. I laughed at first. Investing? Mary, that's for rich people, not for moms like us. But she shook her head and showed me her statements. She had started small, just like us, but after 3 years, she already had a tidy sum growing. She explained the idea of long-term investing, how the money you put in grows over time, how dividends can be reinvested, and how patience was the most important ingredient. I went home that day with a mix of skepticism and curiosity, but her words kept echoing in my mind. That night, after the girls went to bed, I searched for information on our old desktop computer. The internet was slow back then, but I found forums, blogs, and even YouTube videos of people talking about investing. Soon, I bought a used copy of The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham at a local bookstore. I didn't understand all the terms at first, PE ratios, compounding, diversification, but I began to grasp the bigger picture. I realized that money in a savings account was actually losing value to inflation. But money invested wisely could grow. And you didn't need to be rich to start. You just needed discipline and patience. For the first time, I saw a glimmer of hope that our financial future could be different. One evening after dinner, I sat down with Ben at our kitchen table. The girls were watching cartoons in the living room, and I had my notebook full of scribbles and notes from what I had learned. Ben, I began nervously, I think we should try something new. Instead of putting all our savings into the bank, I think we should start investing a little each week. He raised an eyebrow. Investing? Zoe, I don't know the first thing about that. Isn't it risky? Yes, I admitted, but so is doing nothing. Look, Mary's been doing it. She started small and now she's already seeing results. If we just put in $50 a week into an S&P 500 index fund, over time, it could grow into something real, something we could use for the girls' college or for retirement. We don't have to bet the farm, just $50 a week. Ben rubbed his hands over his face. He was exhausted from a 12-hour shift. I knew he wanted to play it safe, to not gamble with the little money we had. But then he looked at me, really looked at me, and I think he saw the determination in my eyes. $50 a week, huh? He said finally. All right, Zoe, let's give it a shot. But if it goes south, you'll be the one explaining it to me. We both laughed nervously. That night, we opened our very first brokerage account together. It wasn't fancy and we didn't know all the details, but it was a start. I'll never forget that moment. The mix of fear and excitement. The sense that we were stepping into unknown waters, but together. The years that followed weren't easy. The market doesn't move in a straight line. I remember the first time the market dipped. Our little account balance went down and my heart sank. My instinct screamed, "Pull it out! Don't lose more money!" I panicked, pacing around the living room. I even told Ben, maybe we should sell. We can't afford to lose this. But then I remembered the words I'd read again and again. Long-term investing is about patience. Don't let fear decide for you. I forced myself to breathe, to wait. And a few months later, the market rebounded. Our account grew again. This happened more than once. There were ups and downs, crashes and recoveries. Each time the temptation to sell crept in, but each time I reminded myself of the bigger picture. And each time I resisted, my resolve grew stronger. Those were the hardest lessons, not about money, but about discipline and faith. Fast forward 20 years. Ben and I kept our promise. Week after week, paycheck after paycheck, we invested $50, sometimes more when we could afford it. We didn't stop, not even when life got tough. There were medical bills when Grace broke her arm. There was the old car that died on us, the roof that needed fixing, the months when groceries ate up nearly everything. But we never stopped contributing, even if it was just a small amount. And today, the results speak for themselves. Our account, which started with just a few $100s, has grown into hundreds of thousands. It helped us pay for Emily's nursing school. It helped us give Grace a beautiful wedding without drowning in debt. It carried us through a medical scare when Ben had back surgery and couldn't work for 3 months. Most of all, it gave us peace of mind. Now, at 45, I look at my husband and smile. He doesn't have to work double shifts anymore. His back is weaker now, and he deserves the rest. Thanks to our investments, we have a solid retirement fund. Our daughters, they're already following in our footsteps. Emily and Grace each have their own investment accounts. We've taught them what we learned. that wealth isn't about luck or being born rich, but about patience and steady effort. On Sundays, when the family gathers for barbecue in the backyard, I sometimes look around and think, this is why we did it. This is why we stayed disciplined. If you're listening to my story, maybe you're like I was 20 years ago. Maybe you're sitting at a kitchen table at night, worrying about bills, wondering if the little money you save will ever be enough. Here's what I want you to know. You don't need to be wealthy to start investing. You don't need to be a financial genius. You don't need thousands of dollars up front. All you need is to start small, stay consistent, and be patient. For me, it was $50 a week. For you, it might be 20. What matters is the habit, the discipline, and the belief in the future. Long-term investing changed my life, my husband's life, and my children's lives. It turned a worried young housewife into a confident woman who knows that her family is secure. So to every mom out there, I say this: don't wait for the perfect moment. Start now. Start small. Stay steady. Your future self and your family will thank you. Because in the end, long-term investing isn't just about money. It's about building a foundation of security and freedom. And that, more than anything, is the true wealth of a family. My story ends here, but your journey is only just beginning. If this story touched you, please hit like so I know you care too. Don't forget to share it with your friends, with other wives and mothers, so they can also believe that with patience, anyone can invest and build lasting wealth. I would also love to hear your story. Leave a comment below and share the struggles or financial dreams your family has. And if you want to keep walking this journey with me and hear more real stories like this, make sure to subscribe to Smart Family Finance. Who knows, maybe the next story will be yours.